the last-minute research paper. Do you have your topic and theme? If no, go back. Watch the first video. Make sure you get it. And if you're ready, continue. We're going to go get ourselves some sources. I have to warn you that you must pay attention to your source information. As soon as you start gathering sources, write it down. Everything that you need to cite correctly, including page numbers. You will need this, noting that web pages do not have page numbers. Even though when you print it, you get page numbers out of your printer. Those are not page numbers. Those don't count. They don't count. Sometimes there's a paragraph count. You need this information, exactly all the information from your source and the page numbers. If you don't do this, you're going to be in trouble. So what does it look like? You need to know if it's MLA, APA, CMS, something else. Go back and check the original assignment and see which one is indicated. If not, you need to choose. If you don't know what any of that meant, you need to look it up, because there is a huge red flag with missing citations. It means plagiarism. Don't do it. Your teacher will hate you and you'll get a 0 and you could get kicked out of school. So there are 2 parts to every citation. If you don't know this, you may need to learn this real quick. The brief of it is, there's in-text citations, also known as parenthetical citations, that indicate where you got your source, and that's where the page number comes in, but it refers you to the end of text citations, which is either works cited, MLA, references, APA, or bibliography, CMS. If you don't know this, you're going to have to learn it quick. Note that newer versions of Word can insert citations for you. Pitfall! Because it's probably not going to be correct, and you need to double check them. If you just let it cite for you and you think you're doing it right and you're just kind of guessing, you have to double check it with a real writer's guide or an online guide like the OWL at Purdue. That's the online writing lab at Purdue University. If you are in a college, they probably have a writer's guide on there for you too. You can use that. The OWL at Purdue, OWL, Purdue, is really good. So you can use that. What do you cite? Anything that is not from your own brain. If you didn't think it and it came from a source, made you think it, then it's the source's idea and you need to cite it. Everybody knows, yes, you cite quotes, but you also cite paraphrases and you cite summaries. Paraphrases and summaries are all in your own words. That's true, but the original idea was not yours. It was somebody else's, and you have to acknowledge where it came from. If you don't, it looks like it's your own idea, which means that you stole it because you didn't acknowledge the source that you got it from, which means plagiarism, which means tragedy. So err on the side of caution. If you know something, but you also see it in a fabulous source, maybe that would actually lend you a little bit of weight. So go ahead and cite it too. And you could say something like, researchers at the Centers for Disease Control agree, blah, blah, blah. What is it that you actually research? You have your paper. If you watch the first video, you have your topic and your theme, which equals your thesis with your purpose all mushed in there too. So you have all these things and you know what your paper's about. That's why you needed to watch the first video. So you know what it's about. You can figure out what to research. If you remember, we had a sample topic and a sample thesis, which was implementing alternative therapies for end-of-life lung cancer patients can increase quality of life. Now, if all I did was search for alternative therapies, lung cancer patients, quality of life, I might not find much, or I may find exactly what my paper is and nothing else. What I want to search for are elements from my paper and put it together, which is my critical thinking, to show how I'm synthesizing all my research. I might research, what is quality of life for anyone? What gives people quality of life? If you also remember, I had main points, and one of my main points was about pain management. One of the biggest quality of life concerns for lung cancer patients in their end-of-life care is pain management. I would research alternative therapies for pain management. I would research what is the exact pain that people who are suffering from lung cancer feel. What is the pain of chemotherapy or radiation that these people could be feeling in their end-of-life care? What are the traditional treatments for pain of end-of-care lung cancer patients, and what are the pitfalls of that? So then I can show my alternative therapies and how they fit right in there and fill in the gaps. What are the pitfalls of alternative therapies? This is super important. I can't ignore it. If, for example, acupuncture can't be used on certain kinds of patients, I don't know. Maybe, but if it's a pitfall, I can't ignore it. I have to acknowledge it. What kinds of research could I use? Well, facts, descriptions, professional recommendations, disagreement, those pitfalls, the limits of alternative therapies, super important again, quotes, but mostly I'm going to be summarizing and paraphrasing. So the quotes are used to highlight if it's super important quote. I really cannot rewrite it because it was really beautifully said or said by somebody with a lot of authority. I might want to quote them. I might want to quote someone who says something that if the person who read my paper thought that I got it wrong, if I paraphrased it and they thought, oh, she couldn't possibly have understood it correctly because what a wacky idea, I'm going to quote that instead. Because if it's a wacky idea, I don't want people to think it was my wacky idea. I want to show that it was an actual quote. Do not use giant quotes just to fill up your paper. It's going to look like you used giant quotes to fill up your paper, so don't do that. You're mostly going to be summarizing and paraphrasing. Apply your research to each main point that you have. Go through, figure out what do I think I'm going to need for each main point, what would I ideally like, and then go see if it's out there. Look it up. See what you can find. Add or remove main points as needed. This is the moment. Maybe you find out that really lung cancer patients and end-of-life care, they cannot be stuck with needles. So acupuncture is totally out. I don't know if that's true. I haven't done the research yet. But if it turns out like it is true, don't put it in there. Figure out that reflexology works better. Sure, this is the moment to change it. You got to be thinking fast. Number of sources. Well, that depends. Maybe you have a requirement. Maybe your teacher said you had to use a certain number of sources. Make sure you hit that requirement. 2 or 3 sources per each main point, then you're going to end up with 6 to 9 sources at the end, which is decent for a shorter research paper. If it's a longer research paper, you may need more. Sometimes you only use like one tiny little fact out of a source. Well, then you can have more. That's fine. Whatever. Shoot for a minimum of 2 sources per main point. If you're trying to overload it with research at this point, if you are trying to get this research paper done like in a matter of hours, you're going to be wasting time. If you're trying to find more, shoot for 2 per, and if you've got that and it feels like enough, well then just stop it. If you use too many sources, you also run the risk of bumping yourself out of your paper. The reason for a research paper is to show off your critical thinking. And if it's all just like source material after source material, you are no longer in there, and you might as well have handed your sources over and just let the professor read those. The rule of thumb when using source material is, when you've used source material, you must interpret or connect or discuss it for equally as long as the source material. So you quoted 2 sentences. You are discussing for at least 2 sentences after that, maybe more. You're going to connect, interpret, analyze. That's your critical thinking. Do not use lousy sources. Oh, yeah, that's a red flag for sure. And you know what lousy sources are? Blogs from just some schmuck. WebMD. Weak. Wikipedia? Seriously? If you found a Wikipedia article and it was very beneficial that you read it, well, that's lovely for you. Don't cite it in your paper. Scroll to the bottom and see if the Wikipedia article cited its own sources. If you found something cool in there, scroll to the bottom, find what it cited, and go to the original. Use it from there. Super. Good sources are like subscription databases. If you go to school at a university, chances are your school subscribes to databases. These are things like EBSCOhost, LexisNexis, ERIC. These are huge databases full of really great sources. These sources will make your professor drool. Oh, good sources. Oh, they're peer-reviewed. Oh, yes. Use those. They're hard to read because they're scholarly. They're smart. You will berate yourself for not starting this sooner because they use really big words. But those are really great sources. If you don't have access to subscription databases, you can go to Google Scholar. You won't have as much access, but it's scholarly articles and you can find them there. This doesn't mean a Google search won't get you anything at all, just a regular search, but use good sources. And if you don't know what good sources are, look it up. Tips for faster research. Besides knowing what you want, besides having your topic and theme and main points together by now and knowing what you need to help support it, besides that, and also besides looking for good sources, read the table of contents. You found a book, read the table of contents and get to what you need right away. You don't have to read the whole thing. You found a paper. Read the abstract. That's a summary of it at the very start. Read that. See if it's for you or what to jump to. Read the introduction. Read the conclusion. Read the bullet points. Read the headings and get to what you need. Pick it out and put it in your paper and just keep moving because you don't have that much time. But find the good stuff and get to it right away. Do you know where to go for sources now? Do you understand what a subscription database is? Do you know how to analyze a source for quality? Yes? Oh, good. No? Look it up. Cite and integrate the research you have found. Use the evidence 3-step, aka the sandwich approach, which also has 3 layers. Bread, meat, bread. The evidence 3-step smoothly works in source material. The 3 steps are: you introduce your source material, you present your source material, and you interpret your source material. And you will cite your source right in there using APA, MLA, CMS. You can also Google how to integrate research to figure this out. I wrote an example. According to the National Cancer Institute, lung cancer is one of the 3 most common cancers in the world. Citation, common cancer types. It's my in-text citation. It shoots me towards where it is at the end. In a 2007 review of patients with cancer for the previous 40 years, moderate to severe pain was reported by more than half of cancer patients. Citation goes right there. It is therefore important that medical professionals explore all options when it comes to the greatest complaint, pain, of one of the most prevalent types of cancer, lung cancer. See there? I got my 3 steps. Yeah, sure, take them all. Make sure you do not skip the 3rd step. That's your critical thinking. Remember, that newer version of Word will cite your sources, but it will probably be wrong. You'll need to double check it. So use it, but double check it. Part 3, and the last part of this emergency series. It addresses finishing your paper, including introduction and conclusion. Did you notice that we didn't start with the introduction? Why? Because of reasons. See Part 3 to get this paper done. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these videos or found them helpful, please share them, like them, write a comment, subscribe to our channel, get all your friends to subscribe, all those other procrastinators. You know who they are.